standing for the scripture reading. Psalm 107, 29 through 31. Warm to a whisper, the waves of the sea were hushed. They were glad when it grew calm, and he guided them to their desired haven. Let them give thanks to the Lord for his unfailing love and his wonderful deeds for men. Amen.
Please be seated. Good morning. Hope everyone is having a wonderful weekend, a beautiful day today. I do want to put in one more plug, and hopefully we'll get another plug in at the end of our worship service this morning. But on your way out, when you're leaving this morning, stop by the Caring Tree and grab one of those sticky notes and go to Walmart and get some of that over-the-counter medication for us so that we could take to Jamaica here in another month or so as it's quickly approaching. This past Tuesday, and I know you guys don't understand this, but tomorrow, a year ago tomorrow, is the day that I was here and interviewed a year ago. Okay, which it's kind of flown by over the last year. And the reason why I think about that is because the Sunday that I interviewed, the Monday prior to that Sunday, was my son's birthday. This past Tuesday, was Christian's 14th birthday. And for his birthday, he's always wanted to go deep sea fishing, okay? And this is one thing that he really wanted to do, and it's the only gift that he got from us this year, was to go deep sea fishing. And so I took Christian and 4 friends deep sea fishing on Tuesday. And it was a great experience. It was a little bit rocky for the first couple of hours, and then after that it got to be pretty good. And so we left out of St. Augustine, and as we're going out, as we get out into the ocean, it's pretty wavy. Okay, the ocean there's lots of waves, and so when the boat gets to going, as we're going out there, we're doing a lot of this, and then going back and forth, and the boys were standing up in the cabin, and they were just kind of standing there, trying to see who could keep their balance the longest, and inevitably they would fall or whatever. And then finally everybody sat down, and I'm not going to say we enjoyed the ride out there, but it's an hour and a half ride out there, and the boat's just jumping around all over the place. And so I'm not feeling very good, okay? Not good at all. And so I'm thinking, if we can just make it to where we're going to stop, then I'll be okay. And so we finally, an hour and a half later, we finally make it to that place where we stop. And it was worse. We were on the back of the boat, and it was so bad. And so I got really sick, and I tried to feed the fish, but I could not feed the fish. And some of the other ones, out of 6 of us, only 1 did not get sick. Okay, so we're all sick. But everything ended up fine. It calmed down. I took some oils that Linda gave me, and I felt much better and was able to fish and have a good time. But on the way out there, I started thinking, how in the world was Jesus able to sleep through a big storm on a ship? Because there was no way that I was going to sleep rocking and rolling on the way out there. There was just no way. And so I started thinking, how in the world was Jesus able to do that? He must have had one nice, expensive memory foam mattress that he was on. So when we got back, I opened my Bible and I began studying this passage from Mark chapter 4 that begins in verse 35, and we'll read that together. That day when evening came, he said to his disciples, "Let us go over to the other side." Leaving the crowd behind, they took him along just as he was in the boat. There were also other boats with him. A furious squall came up, and the waves broke over the boat so that it was nearly swamped. Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion, a nice one it must have been. The disciples woke him and said to him, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" He got up, rebuked the wind, and said to the waves, "Quiet, be still." Then the wind died down, and it was completely calm. And he said to his disciples, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" They were terrified and asked each other, "Who is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him." You see, they go out, and Jesus, they go out on the boat. And so I want to point out some things that I see in this storm and the calming of the storm as we go throughout this passage. The first thing that we see is that there is an eventful evening, okay? He starts out the passage beginning in verse 35. He said, "That day when evening came." Now, I want you to remember that 2,000 years ago, there was no electricity, okay? There were no porch lights on. There were no street lights on. And so when evening came, the sun went down, and there was no light other than candles or whatever you have burning in your house. And so when you get out onto the middle of a lake and the sun is down, it's dark. And it's hard to see anything. You may have the light from the moon to help you out. But as we know what we encounter a little bit later, we encounter a storm, so it's probably cloudy. Okay? And so you can imagine being out on the middle of a lake, no lights, nothing anywhere, and you're out there all alone. And then we see that they encounter a scary squall. Okay, now a squall is defined as a violent storm. Okay, so they encounter this violent storm. Remember, they're out in the middle of a lake in the evening time. When you're out on a lake in the evening time, it tends to get a little bit cooler out there. And then they encounter this furious squall. Okay, this violent storm. Not only a violent storm, but it is a furious violent storm that they encounter. Okay, so what do you have when you have a bunch of men that are on a boat that's raining? The boat is being tossed back and forth, and water is coming in the boat, and so they're trying to get out as much water as they possibly can, and it just keeps on filling up and filling up and filling up. And eventually you have a bunch of men that are scared, soaked, shivering sailors. You have these men that are out in the middle of a lake. Their boat is being tossed back and forth. It's filling up with water. They're getting wet. They're cold, and they're scared. That's what we have right here in this story. You have a bunch of men that are probably acting like females at this point. Okay? They're trying to get the water out of the boat, being drenched, being soaked, and they're scared. And there's nothing that they can do to get out of this situation. They're rowing as fast as they can to get out of the storm. They're throwing buckets of water over, and there's absolutely nothing that they can do to get out of this situation, except for one thing. They call on the only one who can calm this storm. And so they go and they find Jesus. What do? When you come into a storm and you're cold, you're scared, you find Jesus. And that's exactly what they did. And they went and woke Jesus up. And then Jesus got up and calmed the storm. And he said, "Winds, stop. Waves, be quiet. Be still." I can't imagine that that's how Jesus reacted. Just getting up and stretching out and yawning from this long nap that he had, and then just calmly telling the storm to be still. Now, my wife and my children can attest to this. If something or somebody wakes me up, I'm not a happy camper, Okay, I am cranky. Now, if my alarm wakes me up or I wake up on my own, I'm fine. But if somebody comes in and wakes me up, I am one cranky dude. You don't want to be around me. Okay. Now, when they went and woke up Jesus, I wouldn't imagine that Jesus was excited to wake up. He was ready to wake up. But they went and woke him up. And what Jesus did next, he says, wind, stop. Waves, be quiet. Be still. And immediately, the storm was gone. It was calm. There was nothing there. And they understood at that point that this is the only one that could calm the storm. Look at what Jesus says to him after he calms the storm. He says, why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith? You see, it says, you guys have been with me. You have seen the things that I can do. You know that I am the Messiah. You have been with me through all of these things. Why do you still have no faith? Why are you still afraid? When I am in your presence, everything is going to be okay. And he tells them, why are you so afraid? Why do you still have no faith? And the only thing that they could do is to look at each other, terrified, and say, who is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him. Remember, these men did everything that they possibly could to get away from this storm. They were bailing out water. They were rowing the boat. They did everything that they could possibly do to get out of this storm. But what happened? They didn't get out of it. It's possible that the storm got worse and worse. Don't you imagine that they were praying to God to stop this? Remember, these are experienced fishermen. They've been in storms before on the lake. But this was obviously something that they have never encountered before because they were scared. And the only thing that they could do was go to the only one who could calm that storm. And Jesus came out and simply spoke and calmed the storm. Now, we encounter storms in our own lives. We all have these storms that come up in our lives. And it's how do we respond to those storms? How do we deal with the storms in our lives? What do we do when those furious squalls come up in our lives? How do we react to those storms that we have come up in our lives? You see, there's this terrible, terrible misconception out there that God will not give you more than you can bear. Have you ever heard that? I have heard that quoted as though it's Scripture. Never does the Bible ever say that God will not give you more than you can bear. Now, 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 13 says this, God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear, but when you are tempted, he will also provide a way out so that you can endure it. Doesn't say anything about God will not give you more than you can bear. He tells us that he will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you can bear. Nothing about him not giving you anything more than what you can bear. And if you think your storms are so bad in your life, I want to encourage you to, if you have some time, to go and read the story of Job. If you think your storms are bad, you read the story of Job, and you'll quickly realize that your storms are nowhere compared to the storms that Job encountered. And he still stayed faithful. And so I would tell you that the reality is it's not that God will not give you more than you can bear. Reality is that God is going to allow you to go through more than what you can bear. God is going to allow you to go through storms in your life so much that are so bad that you cannot bear them. Because when we go through those storms that we cannot bear, and we get to that point where I just can't take it anymore, the only place that we turn is to Him. That's the place where we go. The disciples, they did everything that they could do. They got to the point where they couldn't bear it anymore. And that's when they went and got Jesus. And so God is going to allow us to go through things. We're going to be to the point where we can't bear it anymore. And when we get there, that's when we're going to call on Him. We're going to rely on Him. Solomon tells us this. He says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. He said, you trust in the Lord. Trust in Him, not on the things that you think you know, not on what you understand, but you trust in Him. And when we go through the storms in our lives, we have to put our trust in Him. James tells us this. He says, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds. Because you know that the testing of your faith, and that's what your storms in your life are, it's the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let first perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. He doesn't say, be excited about going through what you're going through. He doesn't say that you're supposed to be joyful as you're going through those storms in your life. But what he's saying is when you go through storms in your life, you consider it pure joy because you know what the end result is. You know that you're going to get through that storm. And when you come through that storm, you're going to be stronger spiritually than you were when you began that storm. That's what James is saying. He's not saying that you have to enjoy what you're going through. But he says you have to know what's on the other side and that you're going to be stronger because of that storm in your life. And so how should we deal with these storms? What is our response to the storms in our lives? I'm going to give you a couple of things that we must do when storms come up in our lives. And the first thing that we have to do when we encounter a storm in our life is seek the only one who can calm the storm. We've got to seek Him. Don't wait. Do not wait until you can't bear it anymore. The first thing when you encounter that storm is you seek the only one who can calm that storm in your life. But that's the easy part. The more difficult part is this: allowing Him to work through your storm. Because there you have to relinquish all control. And that's where trusting in the Lord comes in. And you have to trust in Him that He will help you get through that storm, that He will calm that storm in your life. And so you seek the only one who can calm the storm and allow Him to work. Because He's going to work in many different ways. Maybe you're going through a financial storm in your life. And God, when you seek Him, God will provide a way to calm that storm in your life. Maybe giving you gifts. Money comes up from somewhere that you had no idea where it came from. God uses answered prayer to calm the storms in our lives. But in my experience with storms in other people's lives and storms in my life, God uses His people to calm those storms in our lives. I want to tell you of a storm that I had in my life. My mother had been battling cancer for 2.5 years. And that was the beginning of the storm, was when she started battling cancer, because our whole lives changed. She was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. And stage 4 is a point where the doctors say there's really not much else they can do other than just prolong your life with chemo. And so Mom went through chemo treatments, radiation treatments, everything that she could. And in those 2.5 years, we saw my mother deteriorate physically. 2 years ago, almost to the day, my mom stopped taking chemo in February. She decided she had enough, and she wanted to have a better quality of life the last few months of her life. And almost 2 years ago to the day, I'm taking our teenagers from Kaufman to Uplift at Searcy, Arkansas at Harding. And about 3 hours into the trip, I get a phone call from my sister. And she tells me, she says, the nurse just left. And she said it's not going to be much longer. So if you want to see Mom, you need to get here. And so we continued on to Searcy, and I made a few phone calls and decided to fly out of Little Rock the next morning to Dallas, and then Linda would pick us up in Dallas, and then we would go out to West Texas to Lubbock. And so thankfully I had 2 interns that were able to watch over the kids. There wasn't a whole lot for them to do, but make sure they didn't get any trouble or anything. And so Callista and I flew out of Little Rock that next morning, Sunday morning. Flew into Dallas. Linda met us in Dallas, picked us up there, and then we drove out to West Texas. We got there late Sunday night. But I got to spend 3 nights and 2 days with my mother before she passed away. That storm was over. But then we encountered a furious squall. I mean, a violent one. Learning to live without your mother. Wanting to call Mom and just talk. Wasn't able to do it anymore. And I can't tell you how many emails, phone calls, text messages, and cards that we got from our church family. And that helped calm that furious squall in our lives. I was a part of a men's group, a huddle in Kaufman that helped me through that furious squall in my life. Still hurts to think about it, to talk about it. But I sought Him. From the very beginning, I sought God. And He, without me being able to see how He was working, He was working. For 2.5 years, as people walked with us through this storm, God was preparing them to help calm that storm in my life. And so firsthand, I can see how God uses His people to calm the storms in our lives. And we've all been through storms in our lives. Or maybe right now you're in the very midst of a storm in your life. Maybe you haven't encountered a storm in your life. I want to give you some encouraging words real quick. You will encounter storms in your life. But God, if we seek the only one who can calm that storm in our lives and allow Him to work through that storm, to calm that storm in our lives, then we can consider it pure joy, because on the other side, we've come out stronger than where we began. If you are in the midst of a furious squall in your life right now, I do want to give you some encouraging words. These are the words from Jesus. He says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened." He says, "Come to me, those of you who are going through these storms in your lives, who have encountered this furious squall in your life." He says, "Come to me, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light." If you're in the midst of a storm in your life right now, take comfort from these words. Know that He is there. What we have to do is to seek Him, because He's the only one that can calm that storm in our lives. And we need to allow Him to work through those storms. This morning, if you are in the midst of that storm in your life, I just want to offer this time that we're about to enter as a time for us as the body of Jesus Christ to seek Him on your behalf, to seek the only one that can calm that storm in your life, and ask for strength for you to allow Him to work in that storm. Whatever your need is this morning, we want to offer this time right now as a time for you to come forward as we all stand and as we sing.
My hope is built on